percentage improved from just Connor on this last one? It was easier, right? Softball. Softball questions. This last one. So I realize that some of this is recap for some of you, and we've talked about a lot of these things over the last couple of years, but bringing it all together today. And we've discussed the areas, but not specific teams. So turn to page 1-8, and you'll see a chart there. We needed to lay a good foundation for everything first. Everything is built on the foundation of Jesus, of course. And just as Jesus is our foundation, our rock that never moves, He's also the head of the body. He is at the top. So everything begins, is based on Him, and everything ends with Him. Beginning and ending. That sounds biblical, right? The first and the last. The Alpha and Omega. So all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to Him. And His Word says that local congregations are to have a group of elders to oversee ministry and to shepherd people. So they have a spiritual job. The job of the elders, according to Scripture, is not necessarily the nuts and bolts of ministry, day-to-day busy work stuff. It's their job to shepherd people and oversee ministry. Am I missing something there, Brian? It seemed like there was a third thing we have talked about as elders. Well, some of it's creating policy or a framework for the function for ministry. So the elders, the paid staff, and the area leaders make up the leadership team. And the leadership team obviously submits to the authority of the elders. Now, I lead the leadership team. I do not lead the elder team, because the elders can lead themselves. Okay? So I work with them closely, and I would say that in the past we had a little bit of confusion, or I had some confusion about what my role is. And since we have developed this structure, I'm really clear now about what my role is. My role is to help oversee the 7 areas and to help them and to lead the leadership team under the authority of the elders. So that has really helped me know where I fit and how things work. So this chart is great for me, and it breaks down where everyone else is as well. So I'd like to encourage you as you look at this to circle the teams that you are leading. So I circled the leadership team, and I circled myself, and I circled discipleship because I'm an area leader, and one-to-one because I'm heading up that team, and also the leadership training team, developing that. So those are the things I'm doing. So it might help you, if it helps you, to circle it. If you're not a team leader, then you might even circle which areas you're involved in, or which teams you would be partnering with or be a part of, even if you're not leading that. So, I can't leave the staff out. I'm overseeing the 7 areas in conjunction with the custodians and secretary to be able to accomplish that. So, after hole punching hundreds of pages, Louise told me tonight, next time you do this, we can order paper that's 3-hole punched. I said, yes, ma'am. I'm still learning. Yeah. Oops. Oh, it's too late to order any before. All right, now you can turn to section 2, high impact leaders. Section 2, tab 2. So that's the title page. Has a picture of sandals, and it says leadership. Because leadership begins with good followership. If we're going to be leaders in the kingdom, we need to be good followers of Jesus. Luke 9:23, can we say that together? Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. Matthew chapter 4, verse 19. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will make you fishers of men. At once they left their nets and followed him. So becoming a high-impact leader means following Jesus. And again, without a relationship with God that is real and personal, all this means nothing. So turn the page. to page 2-1. Leader descriptions. Okay, it is my job to lead the 7 areas. What that means is I am available to provide leadership, coordination, encouragement, resources, and accountability to area leaders. And then it's their job to provide leadership, coordination, encouragement, resources, and accountability to team leaders in their ministry area. Area leaders will establish teams for effective ministry in their areas. So the area leaders have been a part of a process of determining what teams are going to exist in my area, at least right now. And then maybe develop some more of those in the future. And they've gone through the process of recruiting and selecting team leaders in their area, and some of that is ongoing. We still are recruiting for some team leaders for various teams. And then I kind of broke this down a little bit here, and this is new to some of our leaders. The area leaders will not only mentor team leaders in ministry skills, okay, like, Gail and Mark. Gail, you're the evangelism area leader. Mark, you're the team leader for greeters. Okay, so it's not only Gail's responsibility to mentor you on how to do ministry, but also responsibility to shepherd and disciple you. And I think there's a distinction there, right, between the machinery and skills of ministry versus the relationship end of things. Because leadership is much more than exercising authority. It's about relationship. That's what I feel God has really taught me, especially over the last 3 years. It's much more about the relationships. It's not about pointing and having people ask you how high when you tell them to jump. It's about the relationship with them. And if the only time, area leaders, the only time that you speak to your team leaders is when they've done something wrong, or when you're asking them to do something, if that's the only time you're contacting them, that's a bad place to be in. Because there needs to be a stronger relationship there. Because then accountability grows out of that kind of relationship, and respect as well. So it's not just about overseeing their ministry team, but shepherding them through things when the stuff of life comes up and is thrown in our direction, and about discipling them in their relationship with God. Now, team leaders, it is your job. You exist to provide leadership, coordination, encouragement, resources, and accountability to ministry partners. So similarly, if the only time you're talking to your ministry partners is when they've messed up, or if you're asking them to do something, then that's probably not a good place to be. Need to work on relationships with those people. The exception to this might be where you have ministry partners that serve on a team very, very sporadically, and say you have a whole bunch of people, sort of like Gloria. You're not going to probably have significant relationships with every lady that you hit up for a funeral dinner. It's not going to be possible. But that's kind of on a sporadic basis, not a we're serving all the time, kind of basis. So there are some exceptions there. But our leadership needs to flow out of our relationships with people, and that means loving them, serving them, connecting with them. I've heard it said, I think this is in the No Man Left Behind model, that we're supposed to touch a heart before asking for a hand. So that can be part of the recruiting process too, getting to know individuals that you might like to recruit, but maybe get to know them a little bit first, work on a relationship, and then you'll know a little more about them and maybe know if they fit in a particular ministry. An easy way to remember our structure is with the acrostic ATM.
That stands for Automatic Transaction Machine.
Transaction or teller?
Transaction.
Well, you're the banker. You ought to know. Well, I hijacked it for our purposes here. Like area leader, team leader, ministry partner. Because we're not necessarily used to these things. I think we're more used to area leader, team leader now, but not ministry partner. And there's something to ministry partner in that aspect. So we'll talk about that more here in a little bit. I turn the page to 2-2. Those are current area leaders and team leaders. You'll notice some breaks on the team leaders. In discipleship, I could use men's ministry, women's ministry, small group. Team leaders. A fellowship, Ryan, you could really use somebody for special events and for van ministry. You go pick people up and bring them to the fellowship that is taking place here. And Lori, I know, need a prayer team leader, a service area, benevolence, and encouragement. Although we interviewed Jan Gorey for encouragement today. But she had open heart surgery, 7 weeks ago? It's amazing that you're even here.
I'm a tough old lady.
Oh, no comment, but yes, you are. So we're glad to have you here tonight and participating. So yeah, that was an encouraging interview with you. I know in evangelism, outreach, and just local evangelism, training people how to tell the good news of Jesus, and international evangelism, which is our fancy word for missions. In stewardship, team of interior design, and youth, you see Michelle's name a whole lot of places in there for now, but somebody's got to get things off the ground up and running because that's an ongoing ministry that we're doing. And so, but I know that she could use some other team leaders. Couldn't she, Michelle?
Yes.
There? Oh, you don't want to do everything yourself?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, that's probably not real healthy to do everything yourself. So how does that go again, the ATM thing? It stands for area leader, team leader, ministry partner. And it's your job, team leader, to recruit ministry partners to be a part of your team. So how do you go about doing that? Where do you start? You just run about willy-nilly and asking people to, hey, can you help me with this team? I really need some people. Do we, beg? Do we just put a bulletin announcement in there? How do you know people's gifts or their background or their personality or if they're going to be a good fit for ministry? What do you know about the relationship with God? Are these important things to know about people that you'll be serving with? Be on your team? I mean, yes, of course, those are things that are important. Don't we want to put the right people in the right places to be the most effective for kingdom work? I mean, I would think that we would. So that's why we have a process for recruiting and selecting leaders. Now, some of our current leaders we already know. Some people, they have a strong history of equipping God's people for works of service. They've lived in our community for years, served in this congregation for years, and I've been a part of a few of these no-brainer interviews. There really are no-brainer interviews. Carolyn Van Boning is our library team leader. Carolyn has the equivalent, nearly, right, of a master's degree in library science. She's the school librarian at Southern. She loves the Lord. We know her. She's been a part of our church a long time. Your interview is a rubber stamp. Like, really, do we have to go through this process with Carolyn? We know her. Yes, of course we do. But we may not know the next person that wants to step up and be the library team leader in 87 years when you retire from it. So, we have Leanne Gillot. Leanne, you are another rubber stamp. Leanne is a certified mental health professional. Is that the correct term? What is it? Oh, you forgot too.
Yeah,
I'm putting you on the
it
spot.
is LMHP, licensed mental health practitioner.
Licensed mental health practitioner. I'm sorry for the lack of terminology.
That's
So she leads our counseling team called Man in Ministry. She's been quietly counseling people for years. So that's a no-brainer. She loves the Lord. We know her. Easy call. But we may not know the next person who might eventually want to do that ministry. So all of our area leaders and team leaders go through an application and interview process. And it's been, my favorite thing is just getting to know people and by asking some strange kind of different questions. Another one today with Jan Gorey. We have talented people, and I never knew, just sitting and talking to Sue for a little while, maybe 10 minutes, right, in the office a couple of months ago. That was like, wow, we have talented people that are here to serve. It's really neat. It's about getting the right people in the right places to maximize their effectiveness in the kingdom. I remember, can I share this, Lori? Well, I am, and it's on video, so. Well, you filled out an application for the youth area leader. And we're like, are you going to turn that in? Are you going to turn that in? Are you going to turn that in? And, you know, she never did. And then she decided, you know, I just don't feel God's call in that area. So that has been helpful for some of our leaders. And so now she's the worship area leader. And it's been neat to see God really grab your heart in that direction. It's been cool. So it's a shared experience our leaders are going through. Pretty soon our elders will be going through an application and interview process. I have an application for elder from Verge Marshall. If anyone is a rubber stamp for a ministry leader, it's going to be Verge, because you've been an elder for 187 years. 186. I'm sorry. If anyone shouldn't fill out an application, it's Verge, and yet he did. And because that's the type of person you are. We'll interview you. And like many of the interviews, we're going to have to pull the Kleenex out, right? Because the waterworks are going to start. When we start talking about how God's worked in our lives and things that are close to our heart, that just kind of happens. Now, ministry partners will not be asked to fill out an application. There are some reasons for that. Mainly, we want to get every single person to fill out what we're calling right now, and we're probably going to stick with it, the serve sheet. And on one side is going to be information about you, because now that we've started having the visitor online, when new people are coming into the church, we don't even get their address, because they may be attenders, you know, not members. We don't get their address because they're getting the visitor online. And in fact, some of our ministry leaders, I had to look up, Louise looked up Shockley's address out of an old phone book from so we could know what your address was. And there was somebody else too, I think, that. Yeah. We just looked at the used car lot to the north of Casey's. And what was the price on that wagon? Oh, okay. It's not for sale. So we don't have a central location for all of our information for our members. We don't know. I mean, we have the information spread out, but we need to get literally on the same page. And then the other side of that will be information like, well, what gifts and abilities do you have? What resources do you have? This is close to Rod's heart. Like, you know, who owns a chainsaw out there? If we had trees come down, or say we had a tornado rip through Wymore, who would we call? You know, with equipment, or with the chainsaw, or, you know, whatever. So we want to kind of have a database, basically, a central location where we know information about people. Say a widow lady has a plumbing problem and she doesn't have any money to hire somebody to come in, you could look up plumber and, oh, there are 5 people that do plumbing work. Great, we can get them plugged in to ministry. So it's, you know, that's kind of why it's called a serve sheet, because it's really centrally located in the area of service. So if you're recruiting a ministry partner, you know, they want to be involved, you know, well, have you filled out the serve sheet yet? Oh, no, you haven't? Okay, well, here you go. That's our first step, is to fill this out. And then we have a list of 7 C's, which we'll talk about later on more in depth. But those have guided our application and our interview process. There are such things as character, competency, chemistry, how well do they work with other people and submitting to authority, and et cetera, like that. And so those have guided everything. But when it comes to recruiting ministry partners, I kind of see that being more relational, where we go and talk to people, hey, they're interested in serving in the area of PALS or something like that. And Lori's like, well, why don't we go out to eat at Subway and kind of talk about it a little bit? And the purpose of the interview anyway is to get to know people and to interact, and so you can kind of have those questions. And so how did you come to know the Lord? You know, kind of tell me your story a little bit. You know, what was your family like growing up? You know, where's God used you in the past? Well, those aren't really threatening questions when you're out, you know, having a Coke with a friend, you know, really. So I kind of see that more being a little more informal than our formal interviews where you come to the church and sit down with people. Does that make sense? Kind of a little less structured a little more relational. So the first step with ministry partners is to have them fill out a serve sheet, which has not been created yet. We're working on it. We wanted to have it done. It's not done, but it'll be done very soon. Very soon. All right, let's turn to...
May I ask a
Yes,
question?
absolutely. Ask a question.
So as we are the leaders of the Buell and what have you.
Right.
So we get to pick the ministry partners.
Yes.
And we have the freedom to do that because we have run into maybe having some ideas. But then we have on this little hierarchy of the org chart, we have people from up here saying, well, maybe you should talk to so-and-so. Did you talk to so-and-so? Did you do this? Did you do this? Do this? Now,
Okay.
if it's the freedom for us to do it, then we need that freedom.
Sure.
So it either is or it isn't.
It is. I mean, we're accountable. Our ministry team leaders are accountable to the area leaders to work together, and the area leader is supposed to be helping with that process. So that doesn't. I mean, you might have more specific questions or a certain scenario about something that has happened, but when it comes down to it, then each team leader is responsible for the ministry partners that they choose. So, of course, if there's somebody that's just really wanting to serve and there's a spot for them, but you just decide I don't like the person or whatever, that might be a little bit different because we want to get the person, involved in that. But does anyone else have any input on that? That's kind of.
Well, when we're talking about students,
Mm-hmm.
we got a whole nother level of the elders are expecting as far as background checks
Yes.
and teachers. I don't know where that line is. Because those people will have applications, correct?
People that are teaching the word will have a more formal process to go through because we want to make sure that we're on the same board, on board doctrinally. But it won't be much more. We've kind of scaled some of that back a little bit, but yeah, and that needs to be firmed up within the next month so that we can communicate expectations. So it sounds like we have some more work to do at the elder and leadership team level to make sure that all that's communicated correctly. So, all right. Does that halfway answer or all the way answer? I don't want to be a halfway answer, but yes, you're responsible to choose ministry partners just as the area leaders have been responsible for selecting the team leaders. And so, yes, we want to set people free to do ministry and to select people within the process that we're going through for that ministry. All right, any other questions about that? All right, page 2.3, high impact volunteers. The definition of having a high impact is restoring a biblical model of volunteer ministry and experiencing powerful ministry effectiveness. Does that sound like that fits us? Our values, our direction? Biblical? Yes, please. Powerful ministry effectiveness? You betcha. Because the lives of untold millions of people are at stake. Their eternal destinies are hanging in the balance, and they need a life-saving relationship with Jesus. We must be effective at fulfilling our mission, or millions of people will burn in hell for eternity. That's a reality that's facing us. High impact model, restoring a biblical model of volunteer ministry and experiencing powerful ministry effectiveness. So that, I believe that definition fits us perfectly. And the model has been developed by Alan and Wendy Newell, which you can see their picture on page 2.3. So raise your hand if you've had a meal with Alan and Wendy Newell. Wait, Michelle, your hand is way up there. Very, very high. We went to this volunteer ministry training. I was just going to say, ask Michelle how precious they are. She'll tell you how precious Alan and Wendy are. They're incredible people of faith. They have a heart to see people come to to the Lord. They have a heart for seeing organizations produce fully devoted followers of Jesus. So, what's so special about the high impact model? Turn the page. Many churches have the spectator approach. You'll notice, you'll see, hear some things that sound eerily similar to things that sometimes go on here, or views that people have. And the spectator approach is, real ministry is done by the paid professionals. People watch the preachers do the work. I had somebody in the church call me one day, I got one for you. I'm like, what? They're like, yep, I got one for you. You need to come over and talk about Jesus and come to church. Okay. Who is this person? I don't know this person. Come to find out, the man who's talking to me is like over at her house. He's married and lives next door to this widow, and he's over there taking out the trash and helping with the dog and doing the this and doing the that. But apparently that wasn't the real ministry. Right? You need to call in the preacher to really take care of business there. And I'm kind of like, you've already got this. You're in position to do this. Next you have the helper approach. That's big we, little they. People in the pews help the preacher. So, hey, thanks a lot for helping. And then they're out the door. The feel-good approach is little we, big they. Our job is to serve the volunteer. The volunteer is the customer. And the customer is always right. Whatever the customer wants to do, we just let them do. Because after all, we need somebody to do the job. The assistant approach is closest to the high impact model. It's big we, big they. Paid staff and volunteers working together, but in little pockets. There's no commitment across the board to this. So we have been fully committed to a high impact process across the board. And that has not always been popular with people. But that's how we're going to achieve high impact, by having across the board, not just little pockets here and there. And the high impact model is little we, big Jesus. Together we serve Jesus and make a high impact. And isn't that what we want? Isn't that what God wants? To make a high impact for His kingdom by experiencing powerful ministry effectiveness. Little we, big Jesus. He calls the shots, He gets the glory, it's about Him. Not me, not Mr. Paid Staff, not you, Ms. Consumer Volunteer. It's all about Jesus. We're inviting people to come serve our great big God and be powerfully effective at producing fully devoted followers of Jesus. So where do we start with this high impact process? That's on page 2.5, recruiting. Recruiting is communicating a truthful, compelling ministry message to discover prospects. All right, can you say that with me about recruiting? Recruiting is communicating a truthful, compelling ministry message to discover prospects. It's not about going up to people and asking them, you want to help in the nursery? It's not about putting out a bulletin request for a warm body to teach second graders. It's about communicating a truthful, compelling ministry message to discover prospects. So, prospects. And you need to learn more about the person before selecting them to serve in the ministry. Recruiting and selecting are two different things. But just because someone is interested in serving in a particular area, or you've asked them to consider going through the process of serving a particular area, it doesn't mean that you've already selected them for that position. So through asking questions and getting to know a prospect, you or they may decide they're a better fit somewhere else. Better to find that out up front, right? Instead of down the road. I've made mistakes with ministry leaders in the church before by putting them in position, a position too soon, and a position that they're not going to succeed at, a position that you have to fire them from later, and it's a very painful process. It is not fun. So it's better to just handle all that up front at the very beginning of things. You may have noticed that the rest of page 2.5, it breaks down each word in that definition. I understand that most of you have the ability to read, so I will let you dig into that on your own. Okay? There's a lot of great information there. Team leaders, you need to know it, but it's communicated there, and I don't need to repeat it right here. Page 2.6, it addresses some common recruitment mistakes. These mistakes have all been made right here at Wymore Church of Christ. I've made many of them myself. hopefully we can help eliminate some of those things. A few weeks ago, our family vacationed at Branched Oak Lake near Lincoln. We took all our fishing stuff, our tackle boxes, our poles, our bait. We bought live bait, which subsequently became dead bait. And we went fishing in the heat of the day and in the early morning and late at night. How many fish did we catch? None. I'm terrible. It's terrible. We cannot catch fish. We never catch fish. I don't know what we're doing wrong, but I stink at thinking like a fish.
But you